When your dad first asked me to marry him, I thought, I'm going to be so bored.
40 miserable years.
Can you stand it for 10 minutes?
No.
By the way, today's our 40th anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah. So 40 years ago, we would and we did this, we would dump all of our money on the table because we didn't use credit cards. And okay, do we have enough for dinner? And one glass of wine. And we did that all the time, so.
Was that stressful? Or was that just
No.
normal?
No, because that's all we knew.
You're carefree.
Yeah.
You don't have any real responsibilities. So
Yeah,
it's
we
easier.
we literally, when you guys were babies in Lake Zurich, we had $1 to the end of the work week. $1.
Are you serious?
Yeah, remember that?
How'd you guys afford a house?
Well, that's why we had $1. When your dad first asked me to marry him, I thought, I'm going to be so bored. I thought married life would be boring, so I said no twice, and it's not been boring. It's been anything but boring.
We started out as friends, and we just did a lot of things. We had a lot of things in common we'd like to do.
Well, how'd you start talking to each other in the
We
first
worked
place?
together.
Well, I
Like-
gave her a note.
Specifically, yeah.
Well, before that, they hired me. This was kind of weird too because, back then, of course, there was no internet. So I was going through the newspapers when I moved to Florida with my girlfriend. So I was going through the newspapers looking for a job. And then Florida Power and Light had a job opening.
Insulation can cut your air conditioning costs up to 1/3, and it was FPL who told me so. Isn't that surprising?
To learn about energy management and incentives, call FPL at 1-800-821-7700.
So I went and took the interview, and he's like, well, we don't have anything right now. We probably won't have anything for about 3 months. And I got home, and by the time I got home, he had called the house, and Lisa Laurie answered the phone and said, call him back. He's going to offer you a job. And so there was no opening. He just didn't want, he said, to lose me. So he positioned me behind his cubicle, and I had nothing to do.
So
Literally.
she
Behind Dad's
learned-
cubicle.
Yeah.
Because that
I had
time I was
nothing to
doing
do.
customer service then at that
Yeah.
time. And so she was learning the system, the actual network and the system. And then every time the beep would go off, I'd say, do you need help?
It was
Because
like,
it was a training mode. It was a
Yeah.
training module that she was in. And every time she made a mistake, which was often, we would be like, okay, what do you need help with?
and one day he came over, and Leslie, the girl that was in the department with me, opened the door, and he handed her a note and said, give this to Kathy, and it said, would you go out with me?
Oh.
I wish I'd saved that note.
Did it say who it was from?
Love, Ken. No, I saw him at the door.
Oh, that must
It
have,
was a
much for
glass
that.
door. It was a
So much
glass
for
door.
must have been a bit funny.
Well, then she looked at me and she goes, you can't go out with him. He's shorter than you. I'll never forget that. I'm like, not really, but we're about the same height, and doesn't matter. And guess who's not married anymore? And then we went out. He took me to dinner. It was a movie theater, or
It was a dinner
a
theater.
dinner theater, and it was a Murder at the Howard Johnsons.
It was
Okay.
It's really cute. So, but that day I was not feeling well, and I was really quiet. And he was like, "Oh God, this is bad."
Do you remember that, Dad?
Yeah, of course I remember. I was like, I think I just took out a mime.
I was very shy. Also, I
She didn't talk.
didn't talk. I rarely spoke. It was weird.
Now she doesn't
No,
stop.
I don't stop. Stop it. True. No, I think his family woke me up. A bunch of chatty Italians and little grandma.
So I asked Mom to marry me the first time, and she blew me off. And
I didn't go. I said,
pretty
no,
much.
not now.
No, I don't feel like it. I want a cup of coffee. So then I don't know if it was like a month later, I asked again. And he said no again. And then the third time I asked, Mom said, okay, and you got to marry me in 2 weeks.
I left. I
Oh,
went
she
back to
left. She went
Chicago.
back to Chicago.
Yeah. And the reason, and I don't know if I've said this enough times, but just back up a little bit. I was dating a guy in Chicago before I moved to Florida, met your dad. And I really wanted to move to Florida. And he was really upset about that. And I like, this is my happiness. And I'm not, he wanted to get married. I wasn't ready. Well, it was miserable. And so I just cut off all ties. So then when your dad asked me, and then I said, I got to go back. I miss my family. I can't get married. I got to get back to, my family in Chicago.
Yeah.
He said, I think that's what you should do. And then I was like, oh, I got to marry this guy. That's what happened. Then he came to Chicago to visit me. And it was like 2 or 3 weeks later. And he asked me again.
And that's when the time limit was put on.
Yeah. So
So that was
that's our
that.
story 40 years ago. And it went by so quickly.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Really quick.
40 miserable years.
40 miserable years.